At the start of 2023, things in Ukraine looked quite hopeful. The counter-offensive was expected and there was high hopes Ukraine could make a decisive breakthrough. But of course it didn't work out that way. Since then, new military aid has dropped by almost 90%. Billions in US funding is stuck, caught up in a congressional row, and at the same time Russia is tripling defence spending. So where will this war go in 2024? Well, of course, Ukraine's fortunes could change. If Joe Biden's funding bill does make it through, it'll unlock $61 billion in military aid. If F-16s enter the battle, Ukrainian troops may get some close air support. That might enable them to push further south, putting Russian supply lines in range. But the consensus seems to be that all that isn't likely this year. Yes, Russian troops are battered, but there's an endless supply of them. And drones are making surprise attacks impossible. And Ukraine has seen that launching big mechanised assaults is just too dangerous. There's also Donald Trump. If he wins November's presidential election, many think US military aid could well be switched off. So what other options does Ukraine have? Well, President Zelensky has floated a peace plan, but it involves Russia pulling all of its troops out of Ukraine and facing justice for war crimes in places like Bucha. Right now, that seems very unlikely. Russia's putting 10% of its GDP into the military next year, and its army is still attacking in places like Avdiivka. Vladimir Putin believes the West will run out of steam, political willpower, and all he has to do is wait. And why negotiate when you think you can win? And what if he's right?
Then we're going to have a real problem. If Ukraine fails, the Russians have made it very clear that Ukraine is not their only objective. They talk about Moldova, they talk about Baltic countries. So when you talk about Baltic countries, we're talking about NATO allies. And so that's one of the dangers of this situation, is that if we allow Ukraine to fail, and it would be us allowing Ukraine to fail, then we could very well end up in a conflict where NATO is involved, and then the United States, UK, Germany, other countries would be drawn into the conflict because of our obligation under Article 5 of the Washington Treaty, where an armed attack on one is an armed attack on all.
For the time being, though, Ukraine shows no sign of giving up. The ground offensive may not have achieved its aims, but it's actually been successful in targeting Russia's Black Sea fleet. So perhaps Ukraine uses 2024 to consolidate, to build up its forces, its defences and weapons stockpiles, ready to have another go in 2025. Kyiv clearly needs more weapons and ammunition quickly. The US has supplied 31 Abrams tanks, for instance, but that's only enough for 3 tank companies. Another option, some suggest, would be for Ukraine to be invited to join NATO sooner rather than later. That would give Kyiv security guarantees under Article 5 over the territory it now holds. Supporters of that idea say the threat of NATO firepower would deter Russia and also insulate Ukraine from what might happen in the US elections. It could make Kyiv Trump-proof. The issue for both sides this year is going to be manpower. Ukraine is struggling to recruit enough volunteers, and Russia's thought to have lost 315,000 men killed or wounded. Vladimir Putin could well order another mobilisation once he's undoubtedly re-elected in March. Of course, no one really knows where things will be in 12 months' time, but as it stands, neither side has enough resources to knock the other out, and 2024 is unlikely to see the end of this conflict.
Thanks for watching. For more from Forces News, like and subscribe to our channel.